What I wanted to share with you next kind of serves as a bridge maybe between first and second grade with respect to measurement, but it's really kind of a progression for remediating measurement. So you might want to use this with children as a sequence of instruction in first grade maybe, or as a way to use with second graders who are struggling with measurement. We'll talk about those second grade standards in a moment, because what happens is they really start to ramp up in second grade. So I inserted this remediation progression here as a way to kind of bridge first and second grade. So if you get first graders who by the end of first grade really have a tough time with measurement, this would be a strategy, a progression you can use with them. As well as if you're a second grade teacher and students come to you and really have a tough time with measurement, this is also a place where you can start. So the first level, and there are actually 8 levels to the remediation. You can kind of start where you think your kids are, or you could start at number 1 and move quickly up to where they're struggling. But the point is that these levels are in increasing sophistication. So if kids can't do level 5, for instance, you would go to a level, before 5. So there's an implied hierarchy here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to cut a bunch of yellow 1-inch strips. And what's really important on this is the skinnier the better. And I'll even write that on the slide. Just reinforce that you're trying to reinforce this idea of iteration of length. And if the strips are too thick, then kids get confused about what the measurement is happening. So you want skinny little yellow strips. You want several longer strips. And then you want to even, maybe cut some 1-inch strips if you want to. Now, in second grade, we're going to introduce lengths of, formal standard units. But, you can kind of keep those in your back pocket if you want to. So what you're going to do then is not tell the kids when you make these skinny yellow strips that they're 1 inch. You just want to kind of keep them, the same length and not reinforce. The goal here is not that they understand that that's 1 inch. But the issue is, are kids measuring with gaps or overlaps? Are they measuring to completeness? Do they start at one end and go all the way to the other end? So you want to look for this idea that measurement has no gaps, has no overlaps, starts at the beginning, ends at the end, and has this kind of continuity to it. So that's your first kind of measurement remediation level. So then this level 2, what you do is you as a teacher, you measure something incorrectly. Whether you show gaps or overlaps is up to you, but then you ask the student to correct your measurement process. And so you'll see if they can account for some of your errors. So that's pretty quick, to kind of see, are they internalizing what you did in level 1? You might start with level 2 if you think that level 1's maybe a little too, kind of beginning for them, because it kind of encompasses level 1. And then if they have trouble with this, you might go back to level 1. So then level 3 has kids then measure with a broken ruler. And this gets to the point that you're actually talking about the number of units that you are, you are working with. And this would definitely be something I would wait until second grade to start students with. So, if you need remediation in first grade measurement, you probably only want to worry about levels 1 and 2. But once you get to third grade, what the broken ruler does is it helps reinforce to kids that it doesn't matter where you start with the ruler. It's about the spanning of those length units and how many am I, using up on my ruler. So you have kids measure with the broken ruler and see if they can accommodate for the fact that they don't have 0 at the end point. So then level 4 goes back to a little more of the indirect measurement, because it's the comparison with the Cuisenaire rod, but it is some level of standardization in that the Cuisenaire rods have common, kind of demarcations, and you could set up many different scenarios depending upon what level of student you have. And so you may have some that just need the same rod iterated over and over again, or you may have some that get more comfortable and can interchange some of the rods. So you would start with just something like this where you have the blue rod and you say, okay, what rod do I need to put alongside the red rod to get to the total length of the blue rod? So the point of this is to reinforce that idea of measurement completeness, no gaps, no overlaps, getting to the end point, and that you're not necessarily iterating a unit over and over again, but you can set up many scenarios with Cuisenaire rods where that does happen. So that's level 4. Then we move on to level 5, which is to help reinforce to kids that that your goal here is to measure the entire length of an object, and that even if units are missing in the middle, you can still account for that. So you may have some kids who you cover up the middle of the ruler and they can't account for those missing units. And so that helps you see, where are they seeing that iteration or not. And if they can't, kind of like imagine the iteration of those length units, then that's something that you might have to back up and even go back to level 1 to help them see that, when we're talking about measurement with these yellow 1-inch strips, it's that I'm measuring them one after the other, after the other, after the other. So the other place then with the ribbon covered ruler is also to start a length that doesn't start from 0 point, because then they have to account not only for the missing lengths, but also the fact that they're not just reading a number at the end of the ruler. So once we've gotten into these kind of rudimentary lengths and measuring them, then you can get into this idea that when we measure, we're measuring, excuse me, when we measure, we're measuring a total path distance. And sometimes when we measure, it's not just, the most direct path. And if you look at this, these two lines, one may look longer than the other, but what you're trying to get students to understand is that if I want to measure each path, I've got to go along each one of these segments and measure them and add them up. And I still have to use all the same processes that I learned before. And the point is not figuring out which segment is longer from endpoint to endpoint, not that direct line, shortest distance. But if I had to walk this path because maybe I'm walking in the woods and this is the trail I can walk, which path do I have to walk further? So what you're getting to kids is, do they understand which path has the longer total number of line segments, the longer total length of line segments, rather, not number, rather than just the distance between point to point. So, and it's a nice visualization kind of exercise too. And you could set up many different ones like that. Then number 7, we get more into this idea about, do students understand that the distance around the square is the same amount, the same length as the blue line that they see? And what you're starting to get into here is which kids understand that we're dealing with the blue line segments in between the red dots, because sometimes you will have kids who will count 5 red dots on that line, and they'll think that that's 5 units. And then they'll count 4 red dots, and they'll get, an answer with the wrong interpretation. And so, they'll come to see that, oh, wow, they're actually the same length. It's just that I have 2 red dots because I put an endpoint, when I unfolded it. So this is a chance for you to see kind of who is really measuring what's between the red dots versus who is just counting the red dots, which is a very common mistake